can't stand still. I won't slow down.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you had a good lunch. Kicking off our afternoon sessions will be Richard Billington from AWS talking about building a 24/7 SOC on a budget. Please make him feel welcome.
Excellent. Thank you. I feel much more welcome now. Thank you. As he said, my name is Richard Billington, and I help lead the APJC region of the AWS Customer Incident Response Team. This is a team designed to help AWS customers when they have security events on their side of the shared responsibility model, some sort of active security event in their account to help them triage and analyze and recover from that. But today's talk has nothing to do with that. Today's talk is about my previous role at a large financial institution where we built a SOC capability. So this was from about the period of 2016 through to 2019, give or take. And I'm hoping to condense some of the lessons we learned and the outcomes we got from 4 years plus down to around 35 minutes. So let's see how we go. I'm using the AWS slide deck because while most of the information has been gathered from my time at the financial, there's a few refinements and nice pictures that already existed in here. Plus, I just like the slide deck. The colors are nice, the icons they have are nice. It's a really nice, refined way to create a PowerPoint for me. So this is what I'm going to be going through today. I'm going to be telling you this story. As with all good stories, it will have a nice beginning, where we were. It will have a problem, why we needed to change, and then it will have the solution. It will have what we did. And now I say the solution up there. Of course, there is no the solution for building a SOC. This is what we did. This is what worked for us, our company, our state of being, our budget, our constraints, what we wanted to achieve. This will be different for everyone else. So this is not going to be a prescriptive do A, B, C, D. This is going to be higher level than that. Some of the thoughts and ideas around how we do some of the bits in the SOC and what sort of things you might want to think about when either creating or improving your own SOC teams. And then at the end, everything's good. We've got rainbows and unicorns. The SOC works perfectly, no problems, of course. But I'll be talking about what did and what didn't work, and a few of the bits that are headed towards the future. Things that, unfortunately, fortunately, in my mind, I joined AWS. Unfortunately, I didn't get to finish some of the bits that we had started, and I'm hoping some of them have been finished since I left, though. And then lastly, a couple of key takeaways. You all have homework to do. There is a slide listing 3 things. It's a bit of a thought exercise when you get back, but take your notepads out. There is some homework for you. So the beginning. Where did we start? And we're going to start with a diagram that I'm sure is familiar to every single one of you. It is the official threat detection and incident response capability goodness scale. Now, I know you're all familiar, but I thought I'd go through it quickly. You start with nothing, and then you get better and better from there until eventually you get more and keep going and getting better and better and better. Now, of course, you will have not seen this before, I just created it. The point here is that other than nothing, this is all a scale, and it just keeps on growing. So if any of you think we've got to build a SOC project, do the project, we're done, you're wrong. One outcome of that build a SOC project, and projects are good, they get you money, they get you resources, maybe speed, but one outcome of that has to be a continuous improvement piece. Otherwise, you'll find yourself and your tools and your processes lagging behind, getting stale, becoming dust-collecting documents sitting in a folder in a locked cupboard. So also during this, you're going to hear me talk about past and old and bad, and then good and new and what we got in the future. But none of those are bad and good. We started off probably on this, we'd be about passable. We were a regulated financial company, so we had audits that we had to pass, and we passed them all. And we probably got to somewhere between okay-ish and good-ish in that it met our needs. It did what we wanted to do, and we tested it enough, both real tests as well as actual testing, simulations, exercises, to know that it probably worked for most of what we wanted. But like I said, there's always room for improvement. One more piece of, I suppose, background. This is the highest I'll go, so any of you that are looking for a little more technical, interesting stuff, try not to glaze over. This is the highest level slide I will look at. When we've got security controls, there are three main big picture types of controls. You've got preventative controls. They stop things from happening. If they were everywhere you needed them and worked all the time, that logo would be in the middle, I'd be done, and we could all leave. We all know they don't. That's why we have detective controls, to find things that go wrong. And of course, there's no point in finding something unless you can fix it. So we have responsive controls and incident response processes. So these last two, detective and corrective, this is TDIR in my mind, threat detection and incident response, and they're the two key parts of the building of the SOC that I'm going to be talking about. The detection and how we do that, and the response and how we do that. So where did we start? Let's get into the actual background. And with most things, we've got people, we've got process, or as I'm going to call it, documentation, everyone's favourite, and tools, or technology. So where did we start with people? Well, we had a team. It was a multifunctional team. What I mean by this is we did a bunch of things, and then we did incident response and a bit of threat detection. So we did lots of stuff. We weren't focused on this. We also had an MSSP. We sent some of our logs off to them. They turned their magic handle and then pinged back some alerts that we investigated. For our documentation, we had one incident response document that covered all the things and was fantastic because you could bring it out when there were audits and things like that, and they could check off all the things they needed to see. And we had them, and we used it, and it worked some of the time. But as you'll see, there's a reason we needed to change. And for tools, we had a shared email box. How many of you have started your threat detection career with alerts coming to a mailbox that you went through? Good, I'm not alone. Oh, good. So that, of course, got upgraded along the way. We also had the detections coming from the MSSP. We had some ad hoc Splunk alerts, because we still had the logs ourselves. And then we had our normal security tooling alerts, so think AV alerts. So this is the starting state. This is where we start. Now, as every good story goes, we need a reason to change. We would have been quite comfortable going along like this, meeting the audits, unless there was a reason to change. And we had two. The first reason to change was a near-miss incident. And I'm very thankful it was a near-miss incident. It gave us all of the fun and excitement of running around like headless chickens with none of the impact, none of the data-based impact. There was a bit of financial impact in that we had to get people involved. There was a lot of time impact. So it was, other than learning without an incident, it was the best type of incident to learn from. It had all of the activity with none of the actual data loss or impact to the business. And this really, as soon as you start going through a big, large-scale CEO on down event, you start to really notice which bits of your processes are working well. When you start to get requests for maybe media comments, and you go, do we have a media team? Where's the media team? Do you know the media team? All of these questions should be asked before your security event. So this was the key reason to change. The other event was the direction we took. And this was based around our MSSP alerts. We were in a situation where we sent some of the logs off, and it got to a point where we saw two detections. One we cared about, and one we thought, not so important. The MSSP sent us the not so important detection. And so we went, hang on a sec, why did you send us this and not this one? We're getting the same logs as you. And they couldn't answer the question. And at this point, believe it or not, I know it's unheard of, we weren't suffering from alert fatigue at this moment. So we said, well, can you dial up the alerts a bit more? We want to get a few more. We're trending down. We want to be trending up. We can handle a bit more. And they couldn't deliver. So that really set some minds in a certain direction that we wanted to take. And that brings me to what we did. This is the majority of what I'm going to be talking about. What direction did we take? Well, because of that MSSP not quite working as we wanted, the decision was made, we're going to own all the IP. We want to know how our threat detection works. We want to avoid starting from zero if we change providers for something. And of course, the whole point of the near miss was the eye-opening realization we need to improve our processes and our capabilities, but primarily our processes. Thankfully, our management was okay with a backward step. So we sent a bunch of our logs to an MSSP and got alerts. We realized we would be taking a backward step, not getting those alerts, and not have any alerts of our own for a period of time. They were okay with that, which was, I'm still amazed and very grateful for that, because it made that direction so much easier to go in. The catch they had was we had to maintain the same budget. So what we were paying the MSSP, that was what we got to spend other than internal people's salaries. But because of that backward step, that initial backward step, there was a requirement to prove that we were progressing forward. We couldn't just turn this off and go, yeah, we're all good now. They wanted proof of some sort. And so we wanted to measure how we were going. I'm sure there are lots of ways to measure, but the CREST Cybersecurity Incident Response Maturity Assessment, I found fantastic. It doesn't go too detailed, it doesn't go too high level. When you do it multiple times, you see slight fluctuations as you judge things time by time, but it helped us show a clear path as we got certain milestones complete. We would get a group of people, they would all do the assessment, and there would be a clear jump from a 2.5 to a 6 or whatever scale, I forgot what the scale is now. So if you haven't got measurement around how you're doing in your improvement, consider that. I'm sure there are others, but I love that. It was simple enough that management could understand it all, and it was good enough that they got all the answers they want. So what did we build? And I'll dive into more detail of what we build in a second, but documentation. We documented all our processes and we kept them all in-house. Tools, so all our capability again, so our alerting, we used Splunk, all of that we wanted to keep in-house with a slight asterisk I'll come to. So because of that, people is where the cost aspect came in. We didn't have the budget and we didn't want to set up people all around the world. You can't just have one person in a time zone because they'll take a holiday. So you need two. Suddenly your budget starts to look very expensive. So we didn't want to do that, and that's where we decided to partner. So we got a partner, I think 20 or 25 staff, but only part-time working on our account. And they performed the level one, the initial triage and the step-by-step response processes. I'll come to that in a sec, sort of what those processes are. I like to call them human automation. We had a wiki page that told them what to do, what things to do. Level two was then the escalation. So they'd come in-house, internal staff, for the escalation, all living in Australia. So yes, sometimes you get woken up at 3 a.m, thankfully not too often. I should pause here for a moment and say that level 1, 2, and 3, that was one of perhaps the biggest mistakes that I made, was calling it that. These weren't levels, not proper levels, yet they imply a sort of hierarchy, and we didn't want that. That was not a good thing to have. The level 1 made sense, but after that, level 2 and 3, or role 2 and 3 may have been better, or names. Those roles all helped with the escalation. So they were the level 2. We only had 2 levels: outsourced, insourced, initial response, more detailed analysis, and incident response. But role 2 and 3 also had other responsibilities. Role 2 was all about building detections, improving detections, and some daytime support if the alerts were too high. So they're all about that detect piece. Role 3 was all around the more proactive aspects, so threat hunting, indicators of compromise, and automation, a SOC platform, as well as the building and improving. That was a key theme throughout all of it. We also had an incident response firm on retainer, and they had their own tooling and people, hence the star next to the tools. So that's what we built. Now I want to talk about some of the what we built in more detail. Not the specifics, like we built a runbook A, B, C, D, but one level above that, how we structured what we built. Because that, I believe, is flexible enough for you to take back and go, are there things we can gain from this and bring into your own organisation? So I'll start with incident response, because you're probably more familiar with that. There's two parts to this: incident response and threat detection. So with incident response, we went from one document to 3 types of documents. We had our overarching incident response plan. And this was a plan, single document, well actually I think we had 2, but single document that contained all of the common parts of responding to incidents. So this would be things like what ticketing system we used, what severity levels and how we categorise those, the different categorisations for incidents, RACI models and roles and responsibility, default escalation points and escalation time. So all the bits that are probably common to most incidents were here. Next, we had what I'm calling, and some of these names will be different in different organisations, of course, we had incident response playbooks. These are scenario-specific guides for what to do and when to do it. So this doesn't tell you how you're going to be doing it. And that's one of the key points. We also had incident response runbooks, and that talks about the how you're going to do it. Now in practice, these can be the same document. These can be the same wiki page, wherever you're storing them. But the concept of breaking these two apart was extremely valuable, because a lot of people care about the what, not the how, especially when you start talking about more management roles. But if you break out the how, that is a fantastic way to start automating things. So initially, we put it in a wiki page. We said, when you get this alert, do this, check this, do that, check this. And then you need a bit of human intelligence to know how to do some of those in detail. But when we started bringing in a SOAR platform, the first thing they did was say, well, the first thing you need to do is document what you need to do. We just do the thing. You need to know what you're doing. And that was the light bulb moment for me, where we could bring out some of these and go, we've done that. Now we just need to implement it. So with that, we've got our documentation. This is about the process we follow when a detection happens, when we have an incident. I'm hoping you've all seen this before. Hands up if you haven't seen this before. Be brave. Excellent, a couple? Okay, so this is the NIST incident response process or framework at a very high level. You have your preparation, so you get ready for an incident. You have the yellowy red blob in the middle running an incident that goes around as you do detection, containment, analysis, recovery. And then post-incident activity, where you can take your time, learn about what happened, and that large arrow is, in my mind, large for a reason. That is the feedback loop to improve again so that you're better next time. And this is where the AWS bit does come in. We've observed something slightly different here. It's very much based on this, but in reality, we see it a little bit more like this, where a detection comes, something goes ping. I'll talk about detections in a second. You do your triage and your containment. So this is quick, find out what happened, get your information you need, get a good understanding of what's going on, and then contain what happened. Stop anything getting worse, anything more happening. Once you've stopped it, you can then do your analysis. Spend a bit more time, go a bit deeper, check you found all the things that you may not have thought of, read up more. If you find something new, there's the cycle, it goes again. Then you do your remediation, recovery, and post-incident. Part of the reason I like splitting it up like this is it creates 3 distinct states. The white state, time is extremely important. This is where there is more direct impact. So the threat actor is in wherever they're in, doing more stuff. So time is critical here because there's direct impact. Once you've contained, you get to the black area. Time is still important. There is indirect impact here. So nothing gets worse, nothing's happening, but your systems may still be down, backups may need to be restored. There's a lot of work that's still time critical here. And then of course you've got your yellow section, chillax, no time pressure, continue. So that is a rough process that we used. Next, we move to threat detection. So I said that started with something going ping. You've got a detection. So How do we get our detections? And I want to start with a little bit of terminology. Log source is something that produces logs. So think an Apache web server produces a log file. That is a log source. Then you've got your log, which is a list of events. That's it, just a list of events. You've then got your event, and that is a thing that happened. And you'll notice so far, we haven't talked about alert, threat, anything bad. And the key part here is that in Apache, this model all makes sense, but when people think about antivirus alerts or, say, guard duty alerts, suddenly the word alert is in their mind and they start jumping over some of this. Alert is the last part. An alert is some sort of finding, some grouping of events that needs investigation. And the reason I like to separate these is that if a guard duty alert goes ping, do you care about it? For this model, that's an event. Maybe you do, maybe you don't care about it. This is how you can choose what you want, tune what you want to actually see. These alerts can be either direct, so one AV alert might be one alert for you, or it can be a combination of cross-referencing, correlation in some sort of SIEM platform, maybe some enrichment. Maybe if you have a set of alerts, you can group those together to form one higher severity alert. But this idea is sort of key for the next part. And this is the threat detection documentation. So we started with a scenario list. And you'll notice scenario here, just like scenarios in our playbooks. This is the linkage. We create a big list of scenarios we might want to be able to detect. We then look at the detection metadata. So for each of those detection methods that we have, there may be 10 ways to detect a scenario. We list out those, we list the playbooks that we use to respond to those, the severity levels, the considerations, all of the metadata around that detection. And then separate to that, we have the detection implementation. Now this could be non-existent. It's a guard duty alert, it's an AV finding. We don't implement anything. But where we want our own customized detections, this could be the Splunk, and most commonly was the Splunk alert we created. What parameters did it have? What was the actual code? Which log sources were pulled in and correlated? What time frame? How many over that time frame? All of this data was contained either in the metadata or the implementation. So with this, we had a list of things we were detecting and scenarios we could find, which also meant we knew what we weren't detecting and hence what we needed to improve. And to help us with this, I mentioned continuous improvement. I've got another nice circle diagram. We started off by brainstorming detection scenarios. What do we want to detect? And there's lots of places you can get this. Previous incidents you've had. Other people's incidents. If you see a news story, could that happen to you? Simulations or tabletop exercises. A great place to find things that you may not be able to detect, but want to detect. Threat modeling, ISACs, information sharing centers, MITRE attack framework, country CERT teams, news stories. This is a brainstorming exercise. You'll get a long list. You might revisit it once every 6 months, year. I think ours was 6 months. I tried to revisit it. Once you've got your scenarios, you then need to build one or more detections for the scenarios you care about. So this is how you build those detections and continuing improving them over time. So you choose which detections are feasible, which you can get log sources for. You start to get that log data into your SIEM platform or wherever it needs to be. You design your alerts. You document your alerts so you know what it's doing metadata-wise. You link it to whatever playbook you've got so you know how to respond to it when it goes ping. You update any runbooks. Again, the linkage between playbooks and runbooks and your detections. Updating those runbooks if there's new steps you may want to take. Capturing metrics is a key one. How well are your detections performing? Do you get one positive for every 3 false positives? Or do you get one positive for every 300,000 false positives? Well, one of those is a good alert, and the other, in my opinion, is bad alert and should be turned off or tuned. And then it loops around. Once you've done your metrics and you've done your review, I think we did 2 weekly reviews, maybe monthly, we then tweak or choose our detections and start the cycle again. So jumping back to a bit more of what did we build? We built a newer incident response process. So we built that plan. We built a whole bunch of reporting templates, and these were key. I'll come to those in a second. And communications templates. So this is about telling people what's going on. And this opened a lot of eyes, because before this, everything was behind closed doors. We built a whole bunch of playbooks. So we went through that list of scenarios we generated and picked out some of the more important ones, built playbooks for how we'd deal with those. And we built runbooks, which was for us a wiki page with a list of steps to take that eventually started to migrate to a SOR platform. We also built a new threat detection framework, which is what I've just showed you. We found all the bad things. We discussed and brainstormed how to detect them. We tested them to see, do they work? What sort of results do we get? Are we getting 3 or 300,000 false positives? We put them into production in our correlation platform after we'd got the events. So we needed to get all the events from the platforms. This might be simple as adding a new event stream for an existing flow, or it may involve a bit of a project to onboard, say, Windows Server event logs that we may not have been collecting. And then we had our wiki pages where we described these alerts, described some playbook linkages, and our rule review process. We also got a whole bunch of new log sources and a new ticketing tool. I've left tools out for the moment. We got a new ticketing tool. It was both fun and frustrating, and I'll come to that in a second. So where did that leave us? Well, again, people, documentation, and tooling. People-wise, level 1, we had outsourced 20 or 25 people, not full-time, of course, that follow the sun model, would look at the alerts that were generated and follow that human automation and escalation, if required, procedure. Our level 2 and 3 internal staff that built and maintained the threat detection framework and all the detections was IR escalation and improvement for IR. I don't have that there. But also looked at threat hunting, improving and maintaining our tools, just general building and improving work as well. And we still had an incident response retainer onboarded. So if things got too big for us, if we needed an extra set of hands, we had people we could call. And a key part there was we did not do in-house forensics. That was a conscious choice. We didn't see the need for it. Now, I'm not talking about analysis. I'm talking about proper, very prescriptive forensics, court-admissible style of activities. For the most part, we didn't need that. Whereas analysis, finding out what happened, maybe we trampled some evidence, but we knew what we needed to get, that was good enough for 95, well, probably actually 99% of what we did. So when we needed court-admissible forensics, that style, incident response retainer, we'd go to them. Our documentation, mentioned this, we've got our plan, we had our scenario-based runbooks, and we had our human automation playbooks. We also had our threat detection framework and those detections, and then our templates for communication and reports. And in what worked well, I'm going to talk about those a little bit more. Tool-wise, we had our new ticketing system. We had all our alerts defined in our Splunk platform, linked to our wiki descriptions of them. We had our normal security log. We didn't delete our AV alerts or stop getting them. We kept all those coming in. And we had our CREST assessment tool. So, the future. Rainbows and unicorns, everything's good here. No, it isn't. There was a lot of improvement that needed to happen. And in the future, bits that I didn't get to see implemented, some of which have been, threat intelligence and a threat intelligence platform. We lacked the ability to get IOCs and automatically search them in a completely automated fashion. There was some ad hoc stuff there, but there was a lot of improvement that could happen and hopefully has or is continuing to happen. The SOR platform, the automation side, that was just starting, unfortunately, as I left. And as I said, having that wiki list of things to do made some of the implementation of that so easy because we knew the steps we wanted to take, and it was about which ones could we implement in that SOR platform versus which needed to be manual. And the goal here was same resources could now work more tickets. And of course, continuous improvement. People, documentation, tool, everything was in a loop. The people, we built up a training plan, I haven't mentioned it here, but we tried to make sure all three of these went on a continuous improvement rather than a big bang project that we started off with. It's got to keep getting better over time. So what worked well? These are the bits that I thought were gold star, 2 thumbs up. These are the things I'm really proud that we did. A visual, clear update and reporting templates. So if you imagine, management had never seen, we've had this incident, here's where we're at, here's where we're going to, not properly. Getting a nice, pretty company logo, different sections, headings, graphic designer type format, when they see this professional looking report, providing them information they've never seen before, appropriately reviewed and not alarmist, that gave them visibility that they'd never had before. And a lot of feedback came through that process. As you can see down the bottom, we started using that process very early on. And boy, did we learn a lot about what was broken when we started sending this up the chain to people. We refined that very quickly. Eating your own dog food is key. If you get a consultancy to come in and build you this, make sure it doesn't just sit on a shelf. We got a consultancy to come in and build a piece, and the first thing we did was completely rip it apart, take the bits we needed, and build it in something we would use and keep updating and improving. Still valuable work, but it needs to be something that we love and know and maintain, or it will start to rot. And the assessments. It was a bit of a slow start, but as you can watch over month to month, or 3 months and 6 months, things starting to improve. That's where momentum starts to be gained. People get happier and want to give you more money, want to give you more responsibility, trust you when you're starting to say, we will do this, because you've shown you have done it in the past. So that was what was good. What needed some additional love and attention and help? First of all, the ticketing system. I would recommend making a list of absolute must-dos and then leaving it at that. We made a beautiful list of must, should, could, probably won't, and we spent so much time doing that, we had a lot of trouble actually getting things working because we didn't have that second point. We didn't have an API, and we didn't have a team who could quickly make changes to the tool, to the point where after a year's worth of work, someone came in, got a not quite free, almost free piece of software, got to where we'd got in a year, went well past it, and then we were able to say, we're not going to use this central tool unless you make it do this and more. And then it took another 3 or so months to get the actual tool up to that level. So there was a lot of back and forth around, we need to iterate quickly because we don't know what we want to capture. We want to change the stats we're capturing as we learn more. That's also true of reporting. We had what I like to refer to as a circular improvement, where we'd report A, and management said, no, we want B. So we'd report B, no, we want C. We'd report C, no, we want D. We'd report D, no, actually, we want A. And at that point, it's easy to rip your hair out and go, I gave you A in the first place. But remember, they don't know what they want either necessarily. They're learning along with us. And once you get that in your mindset and working collaboratively with them, it's much easier to go through those circles of learning as opposed to circles of painful, tear your hair out, that's what I gave you in the first place, negative, downward spiral, bad things. Clear roles and responsibilities. This is probably the biggest failing that I did. Getting those roles, we defined them, but not granularly enough. And more importantly, when we found the problems, we didn't call them out as problems big enough to make sure that they were addressed. And so there were constant bits of, I thought you did that, no, I thought you did that. Not big picture, this isn't a big problem, but there were enough little cracks that made it a bit painful and a bit sandpaper feeling as you're working with other teams. Also defining what is 24/7, what needs a 3 a.m. call versus just extended business hours. We never properly defined that. And lastly, we had a team called the Critical Incident Management Team. They were fantastic at doing large-scale outages, to the point where I called them outage management. Not intended to be a negative term, but they were fantastic at getting the right people in the room quickly, finding the problem, tracking the actions, getting something back up and working. So we thought when we have bigger incidents, We'll get all our security technical people focused on the technical and get them to run it. Again, we hit some hiccups because now we've got a whole new set of roles and responsibilities that weren't defined well to start with, and now we're even more muddying the water with that. So making sure those roles and responsibilities are defined, and if they're not, questioning them was a key learning. So now we've reached the homework. I'm hoping there's a few bits and pieces and ideas you have seen from that you can take away, go, are we doing that? Can we tweak this? Can we improve this? But these are 3 things I would love everyone to go back and have a look at in your own organisations. Number 1, check that you know your incident response documentation. What scenarios can you respond to? Do you run simulations, tabletop exercises? Nothing fancy. I've got a video there showing you how to run a tabletop exercise. Do you run them? Have you got your doco? What scenarios are involved? A key one for me, the MSSP highlighted this, what are you detecting? If you don't know what you're detecting, you don't know what you're not detecting. Now, I'm not talking about avoiding AI/ML where it's not completely deterministic, or where it's not completely known exactly what might be found. But guard duty, going back to AWS, is a great example of this. They use a bunch of machine learning, but they still list out all the different things they're going to detect, one of which is anomalous user behavior. The anomalous is where the AI comes in, but we know what's being detected. So we know that's not going to be detecting other things. So what alerts are you detecting? What's the list? Where is the list? And lastly, is a pet one for me, how much time does your incident response team spend doing alerts, doing SOC work, burning the candle versus improvements? And I want to leave you with this picture. Think of a sports team. Think of your favourite sports team. Now imagine that, let's go baseball. Imagine they run out onto the field, different coloured uniforms, no one's got a glove, and they've got a cricket bat. You're going to be going, why did I pay money to see this? Who are these hacks? Why are they here? Sports teams don't work like that. They train, they practice, they have coaches, they do a whole bunch of preparation when there's no pressure, where they can miss that curveball, whatever it is. I don't do baseball. They can miss that curveball 100 times to find out exactly what it looks like and how to hit it over the fence, ideally. So that when the game comes and they get one chance to do it right and do it well, three chances in baseball to do it right, they can do it as frequently as they can. That mentality everyone gets for sports teams, but people don't seem to get it for incident response teams. Your teams need to know how to use the tools, have time to make mistakes, to tweak their alerts, to tweak their searches, to make a directory of searches they like, to build all this muscle memory and capability so that when an incident happens and you've got one day before your data's being released, or whatever the risk is, they can do it as quickly as possible. They've done the preparation, now time pressure is on, they can do it the right way. So they're the 3 pieces of homework I want to leave you with. And with that, I don't know if we have time for questions. I'll be around afterwards if we don't. We've got time for 2 to 3 questions.
2 to 3 minutes.
2 to 3 minutes, okay.
So
How
we've
long
got a
the
few
questions are?
questions in the app, so I'll go through the quick one first. Are the presentation slides available?
So I think I had to tick boxes saying you could record this, or AusCERT could record this and publish it, and that I'd make a sanitized, maybe, copy of the slides. I'm a security person, I'm always a little hesitant. But yes, the slides, I think AusCERT will be making the slides and the video available.
Perfect. Another quick one, will you be able to share the name of the ticketing tool that you ended up using?
If you come and see me afterwards, I will share. Anything that I talked negatively about, I won't share publicly, and the ticketing tool had some issues.
Too easy.
Mostly configuration, not the tool itself, just if people find out later.
How valuable did you find having the IR retainer?
From a technical what they did point of view, From a comfort blanket, the reason people buy cyber insurance, make management happy just in case, invaluable. When you don't have skills in-house and you need those skills, you'll pay anything. If you know you can get them in within, pick a number, 24 hours rather than 4 days, because they've been onboarded, they've got some initial contact in place, very valuable. it's about a price versus trade-off business decision. Yeah.
We've got about a minute left, but how do you protect your threat hunting time? Apparently when you get busy, it's one of the first things that gets forgotten about.
It is and it was. I talked about what we wanted to do. Some of it wasn't 100% implemented perfectly. With that said, if you have a rostering tool where you put people on call and it auto-forwards phones or whatever, take someone out of it and make a conscious effort to protect that threat hunting or improvement time. I talk about sports teams. Sports teams spend this much time practicing, this much time playing. That won't work for IR, but I want to encourage the increase in practice and testing. AWS does that really well. I love my role there. We get to spend a good chunk of our time practicing our tools, doing non-head-down, time-critical ticket incident response as well. And I think I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Could you all please thank Richard? Thank you.